On today's World Insight, after the announcement on the 90 elected members of the HKSAR Legislative Council, what's the top agenda as the new LegCo buckles down to work? HKSAR LegCo member Regina Ip Lau Suk-yee with some answers.
We just sit on our hands, The government really needs to step in and intervene more proactively.
And as China marks 5 decades since getting back its rightful United Nations seat, we'll hear valuable insights from Siddharth Chatterjee, the UN Development System Resident Coordinator in China.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. 90 Legislative Council members of China's Hong Kong Special Administrative Region were announced last Monday. That's after the first LegCo election under the new Hong Kong HKSAR electoral system based on the principle of patriots administering Hong Kong. Chief Executive of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, said Hong Kong HKSAR government hopes to work together with the new LegCo for Hong Kong's economic recovery and to integrate the region into the nation's overall development. So what lies ahead for Hong Kong HKSAR's new revamped patriotic Legislative Council? And what about some of the key issues that Hong Kong is facing today, such as the real estate issue and the housing for the public? On those questions, I spoke to Hong Kong HKSAR LegCo member Regina Ip Lau Suk-yee. Do listen in. Regina, what a pleasure to see you once again. Congratulations for being elected once again as the member of the Legislative Council.
Thank you very much for your congratulations. I greatly enjoy the electoral process.
I know you are having very busy schedule these days because you have a lot of people to express your appreciations for during your campaign, for their support. And I also know that you have a lot of work that you have to roll up your sleeves and get back to work immediately. Tell me more about what do you have in mind as this council's member?
I think under the improved electoral system, our new council will be more broadly representative. We have 3 components. I'm from the geographical constituencies. We are people most closely in touch with public opinion. Then we have functional representatives who will keep us in touch with the views of the professions or industries. Then the election committee, I think we've managed to bring into council a broad cross-section of representatives, some from grassroots organizations, some from top management, senior professionals in finance, law, technology. I think they will help enrich the talent pool of the Legislative Council.
Sounds very exciting. You are well known for being able to speak out and talk about what's on your mind, straightforward and sharp. Now, though, the Legislative Council, the makeup of it, have been changing, mainly patriots governing Hong Kong. So I wonder whether you will find more of the same kind among the new members.
I think the principle of patriots governing Hong Kong is a no-brainer. Which country will allow people hostile to the nation to hold important positions of governance? It goes without saying that all those who hold important positions in the legislature or the executive branch should be patriots, people who support the constitutional system and bear allegiance to the country and to the SAR, So I think that's a no-brainer. But in spite of that, this underlying principle, the new members, 90 of us, are really from different strata of our society. And there are we have over 53 new members. Many of them are independents in the sense that they have no political affiliation, And so the new council will be really multicolored. It won't be a monolithic block. You know, it will represent a diversity of views and backgrounds.
As the chairwoman of the new People's Party, what do you have in mind? When you get down to work, what is on the top of your agenda? What can you do for the people in Hong Kong?
We must solve the problem of land and housing shortage. During my 8-week campaign on the street, what stuck in my mind is what an elderly person told me. You know, he lives in a public housing estate, a retired civil servant. He said that our government owes our young people a home. You know, our homes are not affordable for not only, you know, young people, even for established middle class. Our homes are becoming smaller and smaller, not affordable. We have 200,000 people living in abject conditions in subdivided cubicles. We must tackle housing as a first priority, apart from our constitutional duty of enacting local legislation to implement Article 23 of the Basic Law. The most important livelihood issue is really housing.
Housing is a big issue in Hong Kong. However, we have seen over the past few administrations of Hong Kong SAR, that problem has not been solved. Some even argue the problem is getting ever more challenging. Now, Regina, it is no secret that you want to tackle the most difficult question, and yet, what do you have on hand? There are very complicated power structures and wealth structures regarding providing the land for people with public housing. Tell me more about what you can do.
To solve the housing problem, you need to speed up land production, greatly increase and speed up land production. And we need to really shake off past fetters. You know, we can develop green belts. The government, the chief executive has set up a working group to study how to release the Zhou and Tong, that is ancestral lands, you know. And we need to speed up the development procedures. I think we really need to discard a lot of the outdated, you know, lengthy consultation drawbacks, you know, like no reclamation in Victoria Harbour, that sort of thing. A lot of the procedures are outdated. We need to do a lot to speed up development procedures and greatly increase land production, speed up all that. I think the Northern Metropolis Development Plan is a great opportunity for Hong Kong.
Efficiency is very crucial. Hong Kong has been bogged down by debates. Some are useful debates, some are waste of time. So Regina, about the housing issue, how likely that is going to be done with efficiency by this generation of Legislative Council members together with the administration?
There is consensus in LegCo about the severity of the housing problem. You know, in fact, even in 2018, we passed a motion to regulate the rental increase of subdivided cubicles, and the government adopted our proposal, and we enacted legislation before the end of the 6th term. So I think we will continue to press ahead and press the government to overhaul outdated procedures and to release new lands. For example, I have been advocating, for example, the container terminals. The throughput is going down. We ought to use some of the container lands on Kwai Chung waterfront, you know, harborfront land for redevelopment. We can keep those, the newer, larger container terminals at Tsing Yi Island, but on Kwai Chung, we can release that land, you know. And there are lots of other things we can do. I think the government in the past have been too overwhelmed by the opposition. You know, the opposition has been too obstructive, you know, hampering the government from getting on with land production. And we must break this bottleneck in the new legislature.
But that could mean you're moving somebody's cheese. As we know, there's always obstruction as a result of that. So I know there is new security law. I know there is a lot of changes going on in Hong Kong right now as a result of the support coming from the central government. But how far can the current administration and the Legislative Council members be able to push the envelope regarding that?
Well, you know, there has been a lot of talk about property hegemony in Hong Kong. And I must say, the property tycoons could control, you know, people say easily 200 to 300 votes on the 1,200 Chief Executive Election Committee. Now there has been a redistribution of power and votes. You know, the election committee has been expanded to 1,500, 5 sectors, including many representing national interests, many representing constituencies who don't need to be beholden to the property sector. And we have a lot of Chinese enterprises represented on the election committee. In fact, a lot of the property conglomerates, I know, they have all lost votes. So the new chief executive, whoever that will be, will not need to be too dogged or beholden, you know, to the property sector. And I think they know, they have been following, some of them have been studying our leadership's comments on common prosperity, redistribution and all that. Some of them have been donating land for use at new hostels or transitional housing. And one property company is building middle-class homes at a discount. We need to have more of that. We need to encourage them to show greater support for the common good. And we need to do more redistribution. The new administration, I think cannot just follow the old doctrine of positive non-interventionism. You let markets decide. We are free market economy. We just sit on our hands, you know. The government really needs to step in and intervene more proactively where there is clear market failure.
On the other hand, though, Hong Kong is well known for its market economy. It's well known for the invisible hands of the government, right? And it's well known for an investment environment that international and investors coming from all over the world would love to join. Now, how to keep that very delicate balance? On the one hand, the welfare of the public will be taken care of. On the other hand, the investment and the business environment will not be violated as a result of some immediate goals of the government. So, Regina, I'm sure that is a big question too.
And you know, we have been repeatedly voted the world's freest economies by many international think tanks. You know, we will remain a market-driven economy, and we should regulate with a light hand. Government should only intervene where there is a market failure. You know, that's what in the old days the Hong Kong government did when there was not enough, the market was not producing cheap housing for victims of fire, you know, so the government stepped in to build public housing estates, you know. So I think we can do both, keep a vibrant market and step in where necessary.
As we know, the administrative region is going to have the chief executive election also coming up, even though we still do not know the exact time. Now, Regina, how much do you think this issue will be examined in terms of who will have the capability and who will fulfill the promise if the promises are being made?
If you look at the policy manifesto of the major parties in the recent election, including ours, and look at that of DAB, the key message is change and reform. We need reform. We all know the administration, the executive branch has been stuck in the old ways for too long. We need new thinking. So the candidate who will get our votes must be someone who has new thinking and has the political determination to implement bold and innovative measures.
Bold and innovative measures, to you, what would that mean?
In resolving the land and housing problem, in promoting our integration with our country, winning hearts and minds, education reform, strengthen understanding of our country. Unfortunately, our education reform implemented in 2009 had gone wrong. That's why we have so many young people and teachers on the street engaged in violent acts in 2019. Like in Taiwan, the curriculum, something was done to the curriculum to reduce the Chinese element. A lot of young people lost the opportunity to understand Chinese history, Chinese culture, and that eroded the sense of Chinese identity. We need to, pull out all the stops through education, through culture, through other channels of influence, through leadership above all, to win hearts and minds and to implement reform.
Regina Ip, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
This is World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Coming up, as China marks 5 decades since the restoration of China's rightful United Nations seat, we will hear valuable insights from Siddharth Chatterjee, the UN Development System Resident Coordinator in China. Welcome back. This is World Insight with me, Tian Wei. 50 years have passed since the restoration of China's rightful United Nations seat. Since then, China has taken up the mantle of a responsible partner of the international community. Hailing China's contributions to the UN over the past 50 years, Siddharth Chatterjee, the UN Development System Resident Coordinator in China, did catch up with me. Let's hear his thoughts.
Moonrise, a hymn to the United Nations and China at 50. An interpolation of W.H. Auden and Suchet. Happy birthday, United Nations, a 76-year history of triumphs and tribulations. China has risen like a phoenix rising from the ashes of pain and indignation. Its 5,000-year civilization, a pillar of its wisdom and determination. The nation has set forth, freeing her people from the shackles of poverty, a country united and determined to advance prosperity, embracing human development and humanity. As we mark 50 years this month of China's return to its lawful seat at the United Nations, we rejoice a golden jubilee. May we all be blessed with peace and longevity, to sharing the beauty of the moon in compassion and solidarity.
Thinking about, it's already 50 years, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So much change in terms of China's status in the world, China's working with the UN and the UN as well.
You know, here is a country which struggled with poverty not too long ago. Its per capita GDP was at about $180 back in 1979. Today, the per capita GDP of China has grown to $12,000, and we expect it to go to about $25,000 by 2025. This is within 4 decades.
It looks like just numbers, but
no,
it's dramatic change.
No, it's dramatic. If a person born in 1979, basically today this person is well off.
Very true.
Is well off compared to where his or her parents were. So it's a dramatic transformation. Not just that, it lifted over 750 million people out of poverty. Now, that happening in a lifetime is also quite remarkable. Of course, this year, 2021, is significant because it's the 50th year of China's return to the UN. It is my first year as the United Nations Resident Coordinator to China. It's a privilege to be here at this time, at this moment. So when you're seeing this festive atmosphere around, it also shows that the United Nations family, which is composed of both international and national staff, have been part of this journey with China. We are very much part of China's social fabric, given the fact that the UN also established its presence here in 1979. It was a net aid provider to China. Today, China has reversed that and has become a net aid provider to many other developing countries in the world and returning that favor. But the UN has been part of this journey and has seen China's rise through its trials and tribulations, and seeing it today where it's become a global voice for multilateralism.
So it seems that This reflection of 50 years could help us know much better about where we come from.
Exactly.
But where are we going?
Yeah.
That's another question, isn't it?
You know, China's great advantage is its deep history. It's 5,000 years of history, and that history comes with a lot of wisdom and a lot of determination. So we have to look at it from what worked and what did not work. Now, China's dramatic rise has also been at a cost. It's been at a cost to the environment, and that is why China is doing a course correction. That is why President Xi announced that China will go towards carbon peaking by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. I commend the statement. I think that takes a big amount of courage as well. Not easy, because this would mean really re-engineering the juggernaut of China's industrial might towards the green pathway, which is the future.
It's a totally different mindset.
It is a mindset.
Totally different mechanism,
Exactly.
totally different platforms.
Exactly.
So a lot of differences.
Absolutely. Again, at the 76th session, your president announced that China will not finance any more coal-fired plants.
Overseas.
Important statement to make, because what it will do, it will fast track the innovation and the technology that we need to look at renewables as a bridge to be able to overcome the energy deficit we will see from fossil fuels. Now, this needs three things, which I'm seeing in China. First is dramatic political will. It is that same political will that brought China from a $180 per capita to a 12,000 per capita. It is the same political will that has made China or lifted China out of poverty. But it's also the right public policies. Now, without the public policies accompanying the political will, it's not going to happen. So I would say that across the spectrum of Chinese governance, something has worked that has made this liftoff possible. And last is partnerships. You know, as John Donne said, no man is an island, every man is a piece of the continent. We are interconnected. The UN working in lockstep with China, the state-owned enterprises, the private sector, foundations, the people, and governments coming together. So I think this relationship, which allows the cross-pollination of ideas, of education, of technology to take place, has been a huge asset. And China has been pragmatic.
You have been, the UN has been a great partner with China throughout this 5 decades of experiments. Many of these experiments are unprecedented given the size of this country and the diversity of this people, also the historical background. So at this point, what do you see, Sid, is the biggest experiment that China is doing? It seems that you're talking about carbon and sustainable development. What would this country, after tests and tribulations, will be able to contribute to the rest of the world? Are they not replicable, but are they be nutritious to the others?
The world has to decarbonize. That's the bottom line. Everybody is talking about the crucial nature of decarbonizing, because the UN Secretary General has said categorically, my boss, Antonio Guterres, that we are in a climate emergency. I see China is stepping up. I see China is actually becoming a leader in the space of renewable energy. China's role comes with a huge amount of responsibility in this global atmosphere where the climate crisis is affecting everybody. It is affecting China as much as it is affecting the US, it is affecting Europe, it's affecting all parts of the world. The floods we've seen in China, the forest fires we've seen in the US are unprecedented. So we are living in unprecedented times, but we are also living in a moment of unprecedented opportunities. Who would have ever thought that in 4 decades a country could go from absolute abject poverty to lifting everybody out of abject poverty? Who would have ever thought that China would actually one day become the engine room of global manufacturing hub? Who would have ever thought that China would have been able to, with such speed and efficacy, with a population of 1.4 billion, be able to actually bend the curve of the COVID-19 pandemic? With this population size, if China can do it, my feeling is every other country, every other developing world can do it. The issue is, how can we, as the United Nations family, be able to take the best practices of China, take the knowledge and the experiences from China, so that those countries don't also end up making any mistakes, but are able to embrace all the right pathways. And there are 3 things that will determine this. First is the big data. Second is technology. third is innovation. Now, supposing China had access to all this in 1980, let's take that as the starting point. China probably would have got to where it is by the year 2000.
How other factors from outside this place, out of your reach, would actually have an impact on your work, on your reach here? That's what I see as the biggest challenge. Sid, you work very hard. How would you be able to control all of those factors that are not within your grasp?
Yeah. But that is why that was why the United Nations was created. That is what the Charter of the United Nations is all about, is to be that bridge builder, regardless of, like I said, regardless of the geopolitics. My role is to stay faithful to the Charter. My role is to stay absolutely in lockstep with the aspiration that the Secretary General has of his resident coordinator, as well as the global development aspirations, plus the aspirations of the country. China has a 14th five-year plan. I have told the UN country team we are fully aligned, making sure that our cooperation framework works seamlessly. We can't be working at odds with each other.
I would assume in your position, there could be chances for bigger frustrations. How would you be able to smooth up these frustrations? And as you always, energetically throwing yourself back to work. This to me is something amazing.
You know, Tianwei, that is what the United Nations is all about. We are an international civil servant. We don't come here with any agendas. Our hope, we are judged by the way in which our host government, where we are hosted, think of us. We are judged by how we've been able to transform lives and livelihoods. We are judged that have we been able to deliver as one in terms of making sure that China succeeds, because China's success is also the success of the UN. My hope is to be able to share that knowledge, which I do. You know, I write a lot, I put in a lot of editorials and I do a lot of interviews. It is important to talk about a country which has come from virtually nowhere into becoming the second largest economy in the world, where it has allowed human development to progress, because, you know, poverty is very multidimensional. That is why I talked about the importance of the 14th five-year plan and why we have to reduce inequalities. We have to reduce urban-rural divide. It's a good time to look at what kind of things we can do now, because whatever we do now may actually have an impact in other parts of the world too.
That's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for being with us, and bye for now.